In our first 2 years of travel, we tried it all. Hotels, Airbnb and house sitting. But for slow travel, which is the best and what are the pitfalls of each of those? We're going to get into that in this video.
Today's video is coming from leafy Somerset.
And as such, Sarah, we've got some leafy Somerset cider because we need to wet our whistle. How do we do this? There we go.
It's about sunset, so we think we deserve a bit of a sundowner.
Yeah, I think we do. Before it gets cold, because we've moved on from summer in the UK into autumn, and that means as soon as the sun goes down, it becomes freezing. Before we started travel, we thought that this kind of lifestyle of traveling the world was only for the super rich. It's a dream that everybody harbours, isn't it?
It is.
Everybody is looking out there saying, when I retire, I'm going to travel the world. But for many, it remains a pipe dream, but it doesn't need to be for you. In fact, our cost of living has gone down.
It has.
If anything. So,
Certainly from owning a house.
yeah, and travelling the world. We've been to multiple countries in multiple continents. It's actually cheaper to be travelling than it is to stand still, as crazy as that may seem.
When we speak to friends that do the same as us, we know that they stay in the same Airbnb, hotels and house sitting. So we want to break that down and compare those for you today so that you can make an informed decisions when you start travelling.
Yeah, and a big part of that is cost, and that's going to come into many of these as we go through. But let's start with the one we knew most about before we started our long-term travel, and that's hotels.
The good thing about hotels is that it's tried and tested. You know you're going to get a bed for the night. And in fact, the first ever hotel in the world was in Japan in 705 AD.
That's 1,300 years ago.
Crazy.
And I got to say, I'm guessing that those hotels didn't have satellite TV or fridges in the room. And for that, I would absolutely mark them down a couple of points on TripAdvisor.
They didn't have TripAdvisor then.
Of course they had. Everyone had TripAdvisor. I don't care whether it's 5 years ago or 1,300 years ago. They'd have TripAdvisor.
So what are the key benefits for staying in a hotel?
Well, first of all, it's professional. So you have the standards. You have concierge, room service, housekeeping, and all those kind of things. So next is consistency. If it's a chain hotel, it will have all the same things you'd expect from everything else in the chain, which can be good. And also they will have a loyalty scheme. And those loyalty schemes, which we'll touch on in a minute, can actually pay dividends.
Absolutely. And then there's the amenities. So many hotels have pools, gyms, spas.
Yeah, that's right. One of the things I like is anonymity.
I'm glad you got that bit.
Yeah, you can't try it.
Anonymity.
Near enough, isn't it? Anonymity, which means that if you're in a hotel, you're just a number. You can be whoever you want to be and not worry about everybody around you.
And location. So generally hotels are in the thick of it and where tourists want to be.
Yeah, but the big one for me is hotels are a lifesaver. So if any of you are out there thinking, yeah, I shun hotels, I will never use a hotel again. You will, because you know anywhere you are in the world, when something goes wrong, you know, no one's turned up to your Airbnb or your house sit even, the first thing you're doing is, where is there a local hotel? So it's that lifesaver element that I like as well.
But all this comes at a cost in more ways than one. Many hotels will have shareholders and that reflects in the price. And even the cheapest hotels can be surprisingly expensive sometimes.
And many hotels can lack heart. Anywhere you go in the world to a chain hotel room, it's got the same picture on the wall. And you know,
when you're travelling the world,
that can get a bit draining after a while.
And the rooms can sometimes be really lacking in space and not offer any cooking facilities.
Yeah, another big one for me is it's a multi-use building. So if you go down into the shared areas, there are people having weddings, there are conferences going on, there are people having their first date. There's so many people milling around doing different things. And that can be a bit draining as well, I find.
And the last one, unless you're in a privately owned hotel, you really aren't going to get that local experience and maybe it won't feel very authentic.
So what about our hotel top tips? If you need a break from the complexities of travel, then a hotel is a good option. You've got someone there to do your cleaning or whatever else you need. So it can be a good option to kick back Secondly, use hotel prices as a comparator to other forms of accommodation. Depending where you are, it can be surprisingly cheap to stay in hotels, especially, for example, in Southeast Asia. Thirdly, seriously consider these loyalty programs. We've friends that have leveraged them to stay for free for months at a time. Yes, really, but it takes work and it takes planning. So what about Airbnb? But first of all, just want to celebrate getting through that first bit because we had a few challenges. It may all look good on camera, not all so good behind the camera, is it,
I
Sarah?
haven't even had any cider, maybe it's better now.
Get that down, you girl. We made a video recently about Airbnb and some of the good things and some of the real challenges. Rather than going through all that again now, I'll link to it at the end of this video.
So the first benefit is local experience. Quite often Airbnbs will be situated outside a city, maybe 1 or 2 miles outside. And that then really gives you the opportunity to live like a local.
Yeah, that's right. It's a really good point. Another thing is Airbnbs are unique. If you want to stay in a yurt, you can do it. You want to stay in a lighthouse? Go for it. If you want to stay in a tree house, get your climbing boots on, you can do it. But the more unique you go for, you will find the prices can be eye-watering.
And the last one can be a negative too, and that is kitchen facilities.
Yeah, that's right. You're staying in an apartment most of the time, so you've got a kitchen there, and it's great, so you can cook your evening meal. But sometimes you haven't even got a pot to cook in.
And to some negatives, and we're going to discuss some that we didn't actually touch upon in our Airbnb video recently, and the first one of those being variable quality. Now, the photos you see on the Airbnb website can be really misleading. They look great on the website, but when you get to the Airbnb, not so good.
Another negative would be the check-in process. It's always one of those moments when you're getting to the Airbnb, you go, is there going to be a lockbox? Once, when we tried to stay somewhere on Christmas Eve, he tried to convince us there was a lockbox and it wasn't there, and we were left with nowhere to stay at the end of the day, which was fun on Christmas Eve.
After a 12-hour flight.
Yeah, or sometimes the host wants to meet you to let you in, and you can be waiting there an hour for the host to arrive, which after a really long travel day isn't a lot of fun. And a couple more. First one is around lack of consistency when comparing it to hotels. And this one really must frustrate Airbnb hosts as much as it frustrates us. And that is that there are some hosts that simply don't care. And that really does reflect in the Airbnb that you walk into. A little tip from us on that is if that's something you're struggling with in the Airbnbs you're actually booking for yourself, set the filter for superhost and then read some of the reviews about the hosts themselves. That will give you a good insight. And then the last one on this is not something that really impacts us directly, but this is the social impact of Airbnb. And if you are socially aware as you travel, and you should be, then you've got to keep in the back of your mind that you may find that Airbnbs are pushing up the cost of housing for the people in that local area as prospectors are in there buying second, third, fourth properties so that they can make money. And that can be challenging, and all of us got to work our own way through that ourselves. We're not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't do, but it's something that I think would be good to keep in the back of your mind.
Our Airbnb tips are, if you want to be self-sufficient and live like a local, this is normally the best option. Usually cheaper than hotels, but certainly not always. When looking at Airbnbs, before booking, make sure you compare against the prevailing costs of hotels in the same area. You might be surprised at what you can get. You are effectively dealing with an individual. If you are planning to stay for 2 weeks to a month, why not ask the host if there's any additional discount they might be able to offer you? This is also a reason to have great Airbnb reviews. If they see that you are a model guest, they are more than likely to be accommodating.
That's funny because it is accommodating because it's Airbnb, so it's accommodation. So that's a really good point you raised, that they will be more accommodating with their accommodation. And finally, to house sitting.
You'll be glad to get through this video, won't you?
I will be glad to get through this video. And Sarah's now halfway through cider. Now, if you've not heard of house sitting before, we've made a video about that. We'll link to that at the end as well. But let me give you a very, very brief explanation. The idea around house sitting is there's no exchange of money. It's an exchange of service. You get to stay in somebody's home, often looking after their pets, and they have the opportunity to go away, leaving their property and their pets, and knowing that they're in safe hands.
The first benefit is, and this one's easy, it's cost saving because no money exchanges hands while doing a house sit.
Yeah, and we know people, this isn't us, but we know people that house sit 6 months to 9 months a year. So just think about your accommodation costs as you travel when you haven't got any. That must be incredible. The second one is if you're an animal lover, one of the challenges of slow traveling the world is in most cases, it's impossible to travel with pets. Now, we've got friends who do actually do that. They're watching this video and are very impressed by what you do.
Very. Next one is sense of home. It's basically your home comforts because you're staying in someone else's house, and so you've got all the amenities. So all the home comforts are there.
Yeah, that's right. When we sit, we like to focus on the animals. So we're not really going out and about much. We treat it as a period of time for us to kick back, watch a bit of YouTube, work on a bit of YouTube, watch a bit of Netflix and chill.
But there are, of course, negatives.
Yeah, and the first one and the big one is responsibilities. Spoke about it in the video we made about trusted house sitters. And the thing is, it's not a holiday and you shouldn't treat it as such. This is the closest of all three that we're talking about today to being a job. And the more you treat it like a job, the more successful a house sitter you will be.
The next is getting started. If you haven't got any reviews of doing previous sits, you may find it difficult to actually get a sit because it's a fierce competition out there. So what we would recommend you do is get some local sits under your belt, because then you've got the reviews starting to build up. They only need to be a night or two, and you're doing it more as work to really get those reviews going. The next is location, and because you're in someone's house, they don't generally live right in the thick of it, so you're going to be a bit of outside town. You may need a car, so that's something else to think about. Yeah,
that's right. And then there's logistics. So you might be a real jogging bunny and you always plan to be out on the track. It's not on tracks, is it? What do they do, joggers? On roads, I guess. I don't know. I've never done it. But that may be you at 7:30 every day. But
certainly
you might also be looking after a cat who wants feeding at 7:30 in the morning. And I've got to tell you, cats can be demanding. If they want feeding, they're going to get feeding. You might go, oh, I do want to get back. They're going to make you pay. They're going to do something like, they're going to get that, put it on the edge of there, and they're going to knock it off. And it's all your own fault because you put your logistics ahead of the cat. Never do that.
Never do that.
And so to our house sitting tips. Build a portfolio of local sits to really get those positive reviews rolling in. This is going to give you a head start in house sitting. Next, don't treat it as a freebie or holiday. You're providing a service to the homeowner. So unlike a hotel or Airbnb, this is like having a job, treat it like one. And then there's communication. Communication is everything. Before, during, and after a sit. When we're sitting, we send photos and videos of the animals and their house. We put ourselves in the place of the homeowner. What would I want if I were them? And really what you want is to know that everything's being looked after. So I kind of go out of my way to show, oh look, the whole house is clean and tidy. We haven't made the place a tip while we've been here, and look, the cats love us. So that's the kind of thing.
There's a problem as well.
Yeah,
it's communication is key.
That's right.
There.
Now, we did say to you in our Trusted House Sitters video, would you like us to go into more detail on some of the issues we've had with house sitting and some of our experiences? Many of you said in the comments, yes, we'd love that. So that's what we're going to be doing in the next video, in fact. So when you look at this, it all comes down to circumstance, where you are in the world, what it is you're aiming to achieve while you're there. And if what you're trying to do is manage your budget, as we said at the outset of this, money can be everything, then you can augment your travels with house sitting to reduce it. At other places in the world, we stayed in hotels in Thailand, I think were like $10 a night or something like that. And I know Airbnbs would have been more expensive. So if you are cost conscious as you travel, then that will do it all for you. Remember that Airbnb video that I mentioned earlier on? Well, you can get to it about here.
On my shoulder.
Well, just below your shoulder, you should be all right. We spoke recently about doing a Q&A video. If you can get your questions into us via these comments by the 23rd of September, so a week from when this is released, then we will endeavour to answer your question on our video that's released on the 30th. You've been watching To Go Roam. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.